We're going to talk about the STRIDE bill and have a Q&A. And then the last 20 minutes or so will be dedicated to actually writing some emails to our legislators. And then we'll quickly wrap up and should be all done by 8:30. Oops. Okay. So now Kevin will introduce our speaker.
Yeah, thank you, Nora. And thank you everybody for being here this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn about the STRIDE bill. So I just want to do a quick introduction of David. And of course, we're thrilled to have him join us again tonight. And David Lapp was appointed People's Counsel in 2021 by the Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosch. He has 30 years of experience as a lawyer, a policy analyst, and a writer focusing on public policy and corporate accountability. His work as an attorney has emphasized state and federal regulatory policy in the utility, tobacco, and healthcare industries. And prior to being People's Counsel, David was Assistant Attorney General in the Office of the Attorney General of Maryland. And I just want to give a little discussion about about the Office of People's Counsel. Many people may not be familiar with it, but it is a state of Maryland agency. The OPC staff work independently to represent Maryland's residential consumers of utility services like electric and natural gas before the Public Service Commission, federal regulatory agencies, and the courts. They address issues affecting the cost, quality of service, and adequate supply of these utility services. So the OPC's advocacy really touches the lives of every resident of Maryland. And we really appreciate the work that the OPC does. So David, I'll turn it over to you now.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to y'all. I actually just got back from Annapolis on some other bills a few minutes ago, just before this, so I'm catching up here. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to, before I do that, we're going to talk about STRIDE, which is we'll just call it STRIDE. It's a strategic infrastructure replacement program, and it's a law that was enacted in 2013 with the express purpose of accelerating gas infrastructure replacement. And so it says our goal, our purpose is to basically replace the gas systems that existed in 2013, which are in many cases older systems with old pipe, cast iron, bare steel. There are certain types of pipe, and it was enacted following some gas explosions that sort of were used to by gas utilities across states to go and get this legislation that gives them accelerated cost recovery, so super fast cost recovery for that replacement. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and here we go. I think this hopefully should work. Can you see that? Okay, so what I want to just talk about for a second first, so people understand like the context of this. If you look at it, for those of you who have gas service, there are two parts of your gas bill. Two main parts, I should say. One is your commodity cost, which is like the gas itself, like how much you use, and then the other part is the delivery charge on your bill. So and then your delivery charge is a rate that is multiplied by how much gas you use. So the rate, let's say it's 10 cents, and you use 100 therms, you're gonna your bill is gonna reflect that $100, or you can do the math, right? So it's been a long day. That's, and it's important to understand the distinction between the gas commodity itself, the therms, and the distribution charges. Because the therms, the gas itself, the utilities procure that unless you have a retail supplier, but then they just pass that cost through to the customer. They don't make a profit, or they get a very little bit, but they make their profit off of the infrastructure that's built. So this is, and how that works is they spend money and then it goes into what we call rate base, and the rate base is multiplied by their rate of return, and that's how they profit. You know, this is from an Exelon presentation, and it shows, if you would look at the whole presentation, you would see that what they tell their investors, what they talk about, is their capital spending, which goes into their rate base, which grows their rate base, and they multiply that by essentially what is like an interest rate, and that's how they profit. They are largely indifferent to how much gas actually passes through the system. So if gas consumption declines, that doesn't really hurt them financially as long as they can keep investing and making a profit off of the pipes. So that's what this slide shows. Volume of energy sales, operational costs, they don't directly impact investor returns. So this means that unlike a business operating in a competitive market, where no business in a competitive market is going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure if they don't know they have a product that infrastructure is going to be used for, right? Because they'll go bankrupt, like they wouldn't do it. They know they have a market for the product, but utilities don't work that way because they're monopolies and they're regulated. And once those investments are made and they're approved by the state through the legislature and the Public Service Commission, they get to recover that money even if those pipes aren't used for anything at all, right? Even if gas consumption slows down to a trickle, they still get their money for all that hundreds of millions of dollars that they're spending on gas infrastructure. This slide, this is an example that I've used. When a gas utility or any utility makes an investment, the easiest way to think about it in your head is if it's like a mortgage. It's like you're taking out a mortgage. So every day they make these investments, they're taking out a new mortgage, or every year if you add them all up together. They're taking out a new mortgage, and the utility is really operating like a lender. They loan the money for the investment, and then they profit off of that, just like a credit card or a mortgage. And so this is what it looks like if you buy a new mortgage every day, and then the mortgage is paid out, over time. Now, the difference between the gas utility investments and a mortgage is that the gas utility investments, most of them, the average is they last around 55 to 60 years. So it's a 55 to 60 year mortgage, and the interest rate that they get on that is, we pay their taxes. So with their taxes, it's about 10%. So it's very profitable. So it's a long-term mortgage, and it's very profitable, 10%. Remember, it doesn't matter if the houses that they're buying are lived in. They're indifferent to whether those investments are actually used. Once they're approved, they recover those costs. This is what, for BGE, I won't get into all these details, but this shows how much they're investing, how many mortgages essentially they're taking out. I'm going to go fast through this, but the point here is just to see how fast it's going up. And these are investments for infrastructure for gas, for fossil fuel gas. And so what we have going on with gas infrastructure, and I'm going to get back to STRIDE in a second, because STRIDE is a major driver of it, but we have gas utilities that are getting subsidies for putting new customers on the system. They're promoting gas use through the Empower program. BGE will spend in 2024 more than $110 million just to grow its business, to add new customers. $110 million, that's just the principal, not the interest on the mortgage. The STRIDE statute is really important because of that purpose that I started talking about. The purpose is to accelerate gas infrastructure replacement. It's the old systems, but it's used as a rationale to support all the gas spending, even the stuff that is not old in replacement. This here shows all the gas infrastructure for BGE. And this orange part at the bottom is STRIDE. Those are the STRIDE costs. So you can see that STRIDE is only a small portion of their overall spending on infrastructure. We did a report in 2022 of these projections, and we made conservative assumptions, and this bottom line is what we projected. In the recent BGE rate case, they asked for additional spending permission up to this line here. And the PSC approved the top of the blue line. So what this shows is in 2024, about $600 million or so, they need to recover from customers in order to cover all these costs. Huge amount. The thing to think about is these costs are going up over time, but customers are leaving the system because of electrification and because state policy advances electrification. But we don't really know what these pipes are going to be used for. And unlike a competitive business that has to think about what the infrastructure they're building, what it's going to be used for, these are some quotes from utilities, very recent, that show that they don't have any idea what these pipes are going to be used for, or they're not paying attention to what's happening in the market. BGE knows that the pipes won't be used for gas, or not fully, and they'll say, we'll use it for something else. We don't know what that is. It's going to be renewable gas or something like that. Columbia Gas says they're not aware of any heat pumps that work without backup. So they're saying we need fossil fuels to back up the heat. I'm standing in a house right now that is fully electrified, only with a heat pump, and I'm actually pretty warm. I'm hot right now, but you know, we lasted through all the cold spells in recent weeks, and we were perfectly comfortable. We've got a modern heat pump. They're not like old heat pumps. The new ones are new technology, and they're really, really good. Washington Gas has said, and this is what they've said in the rate case, that they've done no analyses of how much gas is going to be used in the future. So they're literally spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're saying, we don't know, we haven't studied whether those pipes that we're spending all this money on are going to be used for anything or not. So this gets to STRIDE, and we made a recommendation to the Maryland Commission on Climate Change. I sit on that commission, and we said, because, you know, we think STRIDE should just be repealed, but we weren't going to have the political support for that. So we said, all right, well, let's at least make STRIDE like back off from it a little bit. And so what I have here is it's a modest recommendation to update the STRIDE law, because when the utilities come in to do STRIDE, they're not considering whether there are cost-effective replacements to or cost-effective alternatives to this wholesale replacement. Believe it or not. In other words, they could repair a pipe. It's not as profitable because it doesn't go in the rate base, but they don't repair. They don't look at electrification. They don't look at any other alternatives. So we are trying to make them do that. That's the second bullet here. The first bullet is, we want them to prioritize the riskiest pipe. We do need to replace some of this pipe because we're not going to get off the gas system that fast, right? So some of it needs to be replaced, and we're not opposed to any replacement, but we want them to prioritize the most dangerous or the highest risk to the public. And that's what that's what we have in the bill. It says prioritize the highest risk of the public. So if you have the same type of pipe out in the country, and as you have next to a school in the city, you should replace the highest risk, the pipe near the school, because that probably poses the highest risk. They aren't doing that now. They really just do neighborhoods at a time. They just, do some wholesale. They're on a schedule. They have 20 more years left before they will finish their stride work. So this work isn't going to be done until 2045. And so we're saying this doesn't make sense. We're going to have investments, and we're going to have what we call stranded costs. In other words, we're going to have all this money spent, and it's not going to be used. But the utility is going to claim that they're entitled to recover that money, and they're going to be asking to get paid, even though those pipes aren't being used, or a lot of them aren't being used. And so the bill also says, let's consider whether, instead of doing this wholesale replacement, whether we can electrify that area. If you have, like, say you have a pipe going down into a cul-de-sac, and all those customers are planning to electrify, then we shouldn't spend all this money on replacement. I'm gonna stop in 1 second. I want to just share one, sort of shocking. This will surprise you. If you are you all Washington Gas customers?
Pepco.
Some Washington Gas, to do the stride work for one house, Washington Gas's average cost for the principal, not the interest, is over $24,000. So when they come to your house and they replace the service line that runs from the main, that runs down the street, and the service line goes to your house, when they do that work, the average cost is $24,000. We think that in many cases, that money is better spent. And that will take 50 years. That cost is not, it's not charged to that one house. It's charged to all customers, and it's paid for over 50 years. I'm going to stop, and